Welcome. I'm your host, Michelle B. Griffin. As an author, speaker, and certified personal brand and PR strategist, I'm here to empower you to get visible, build your personal brand, and own your lane as a visible brand authority and thought leader in your space. I'm super excited you're here. Now let's get going with today's show. Welcome everybody to another episode. I am your host, Michelle B. Griffin. Today is all about owning it. I'm excited to introduce Sharon Ehrlich.
Hi there.
Hey, it's so good to have you here. Sharon is the founder and CEO of Living While Leading. She has been someone who's been on each other's radar for the last year and a half. We share a vision of helping women just really own it. Her with Own Your Room, me with Own Your Lane. We're going to get into this whole topic. So if you're ready to own this season of your life on your timeline and your terms, Sharon has this brilliant framework all about owning the room. So let's get into it. What does own the room mean, Sharon?
Well, first off, thank you for having me as a guest on your show. Michelle, you know that I've been a fangirl for a quite long time. So it's quite a stunning moment for me to be here with you and to have an opportunity to speak to your guests. I created a framework a few years ago in response to something that I started to see with my clients. And that is that many of them were sort of going through their careers on automatic pilot, basically saying yes to any promotions that came their way without really being strategic around them, saying yes to taking on lots of responsibilities at home, saying yes to basically everything. And my framework is about, hey, you own your time. It's about empowering yourself. And if you really want to move the needle on living your life in some sort of balance, you have to take control. And that means owning the room. And the acronym OWN stands for observe, weigh, and negotiate. And so effectively, when I work with my clients, I tell them, I want you to do an inventory of how you're spending your time. And this exercise alone can be extremely challenging. Because when do you find the time to actually take an inventory?
That's almost like pulling teeth to try to find time, right? It's just so hard. Sharon, I kind of feel like this is like nodding to the proverbial oxygen mask theory, where you should probably put your oxygen mask on first so you can help others. Is that sort of what this is leaning into?
That's exactly what it's about. And I can tell you from my own lived experience. I was a corporate executive, a global executive. So that meant that every week I was waking up in a new city. I had a school-age boy and a disabled mother I was caring for. And let's not forget also a husband who wanted a little bit of attention from me. And I just kept piling it on and piling it on and piling it on. And there was one point where I came to a breakdown. And, you know, I'm not proud to share this with people because I'm a person who takes a lot of pride in having control over my life. But there was a moment where I felt like I lost complete control. And my mission here is really to help women save themselves from this. Recognize that you're on a path that is not sustainable. You can do it for months or even years, but there is a point where it does reach its breaking point, and you have to do something about it. And so, like I said before, having an opportunity to work by yourself or work with a coach, start to do an inventory of where you're spending your time, how you're spending your time, and is that in alignment with how you want to live your life?
Yes, we're doing things probably, and this can work for entrepreneurs too, because I know you work on the corporate side. We go through the motions. We just accept our life and just kind of go on endless, nonstop motion until one day there's a breaking point. Or you wake up and go, where did the last 10 years go? Or something happened that you go, what the heck? And so you're here to help women save themselves, stop themselves up before it gets to that breaking point, is what I'm hearing this. Remind us again what the OWN framework is, because not only do you coach, you speak globally about this, because this is truly a passion and your purpose and a mission of yours, Sharon.
That's correct. And so just to go through the acronym again, it's observe, weigh, and negotiate. So the observing can happen in many different ways. This can be a very introspective exercise where you're taking an inventory of how you're spending your time, not only in your life, but in your career. And, you know, I think it's worth mentioning. I have a lot of difficulty with this whole notion of work-life balance because I think that it pits your work against your life. And at the end of the day, it's all your life, right?
Right.
And so what I like to frame it as, let's think about your life as a portfolio. There are lots of things that you want to accomplish. You want to have a career and you're ambitious. You want to be physically fit. You want to nurture relationships, whether that be your family or your chosen family. Maybe some people want to contribute something to the community. And the list is very long and very varied depending on who you are and what your interests are. And so this observation should not be very binary. Am I working too hard or am I playing too hard? But how am I spending all of my time across all of these different aspects of my life, which are important to me?
That is a new concept, portfolioing your life. I love that because you're breaking through the status quo and the cliches that we hear, work-life balance, this, and this. So you're reframing this. This is what I love helping encourage women to do.
And what I could add to that is a lot of folks will say, I can't find an hour. You can do it in tiny increments over the course of the day. And I don't think there's not one of us here who could not cobble together 30 minutes over the course of 24 hours to dedicate to yourself, not with your devices in your hand, but to yourself, whatever that means. Sitting in a coffee house, writing in your journal, whatever it takes. We need that time and we deserve that time.
You know what? I say to myself too, this is talking to me and probably a lot of people too. The amount of time we just unknowingly suck in the vortex of social media scrolling because we're bored, putting something off. We need to own that time for us. So don't let social media suck the time that's really precious for you. So I think that's where I could probably do more time. For me, it's going on a morning walk because I kind of process, meditate, and do all those things. So even sometimes I'm short on time, I'll just do 15 minutes, but it really changes my point of view and, resets me. So you have struck a chord with this. So let's get into W. The next step is W so the first we have to observe, right? Where am I finding gaps and opportunities that I can seize a little bit of time? And I'm assuming each little time can build up. So you find that small time and then let it grow a little bit.
The other part of it, Michelle, is, once you've done this inventory, then you have to look at it with a very critical eye and understand, where am I spending time where I don't really need to spend it anymore? If you're a leader, this could mean that maybe you delegate more and you get rid of your fear of delegating, your fear of having things done perfect, so you do them yourself instead of letting other people do it and grow. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that most of us have so much crystallized intelligence, meaning that over the course of our work experience and our lived experience, we just get it. We know how things go. And there are just some things that are not a good use of your time. And you could spend your time on things that are so much more impactful. And so the weighing part is to say, is this still worth being part of my normal routine? And if it's not, then the strategy that's part of the N is to negotiate, how do I get rid of it? Or how do I fix it?
Yeah. This is so simple. See what's wrong, figure it out. So this is a no excuses framework. This is a no fluff framework, which I call it. So I'm really interested in step 2. How do we figure out the balance? What are some really practical tips so we can weigh the odds, so to speak?
Well, one of the things that I always try to explore with my coaching clients, who, like I said before, are really high performing professional women, is to say, how important is that to you now? Because let me give you an example of a conversation I had with an executive. So this was somebody who had fought and climbed the ranks to the highest level of her organization. What she also did was, that we all understand that there are not a lot of women on boards. So she was on a board for this and an advisory board here. And those were really hard won for her to get those positions. But 10 years later, they didn't have the same importance to her now than they did 10 years prior. And so part of that weighing is to also look at these things that we're doing with a very critical eye and say, I know that was my baby. I did love doing that. And that did teach me a lot. And I did meet great people and it added tremendous value then. But
Yes.
person I am today needs something different. And that's why the weighing part can be very challenging, because those are things that we fought for. Those are things that we wanted in many cases, but we have to find a way to release them.
Well, that's so true because we tend to cling on to things just because we're used to them. So you're acknowledging and normalizing. You see what's now and maybe even a little bit in the future. So the past is sometimes not an indicator of the future. So I love that. I'm guilty of that too. I'm an overly sentimental person. I can think in the context of like, I know this isn't what you're trying to say here, but I think of stuff like my kids' toys and stuff. They're very grown, but I have a hard time shedding stuff because I'm sentimental. It felt like it's part of me and all this. But yes, that is part of you, but that's not part of you now. It's still you, but it's not the current you. Is that what you're trying to get here, Sharon?
Absolutely. And there's another way to frame it. For those of us who are mentoring women or who are sponsoring women, who are leaders of mid-career people, it's an opportunity to give someone else a chance to grow. And so you grew and you were able to extract as much as you could from that experience, whatever it is. Maybe it's something that you're doing in the office, maybe it's something you're doing in your community, etc. And pass the baton. There is a huge part of generosity that lies in this way phase, because you're saying, I'm giving it away. I got what I could from it. And now I'm giving it to you because you will grow and you're going to get such a wonderful experience doing this thing that I did 10 years ago. So that's another aspect of when it's framed in this way, then it makes it a little bit easier to release it because you realize you're not releasing it and dropping it. You're giving it a second life.
That helps me automatically when you frame it. Sharon, you were just dropping so many quotable moments. Okay, so we're getting now to the most important part, the change making part of this incredible framework, negotiate. So I know we're all going to be wondering, tell us how to negotiate a better self, a better timeline on our terms.
This can be very challenging. And why this is challenging for most of us is because we take our commitment so seriously and we don't want to let people down. And so the moment that you say, I don't want to sit on this board anymore, or I don't want to be the head of this employee resource group anymore, or whatever it is, there's going to be someone on the other side receiving that message who potentially is not going to be that amused or enchanted by what you're saying. And so the negotiating part is, it's also thinking about how am I going to engage in this conversation so that everybody wins, so that people don't feel like they're losing something, but that they're gaining something. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, every bit of negotiation is about selling. I had a very long career at IBM, and I know what it means to make people feel like there is a value in agreeing to something, and I hate to break things down into that sort of a framework, but at the end of the day, most of our conversations, even with our youngest children, are about creating a value statement. You eat your peas and then you get to play with your Game Boy, right?
Exactly.
There is like this sort of bit of carrot stick sort of thing. And so the negotiating part, and I don't mean to make light of it, can be very challenging because people have expectations of us, particularly when they know us to say yes to everything.
One of my clients, Sherry Berry, who helps women in mid-career who have high-achieving spouses, she's a purpose and well-being coach. In her book, she has this, she calls helium hand. We're always putting the hand up. Yes, can't say no. I used to do like that because I'm a people pleaser at heart, but I learned the younger Michelle was. I'm learning to still be empowering and helpful, but you got to frame it in your terms so you don't burn out. But that's where it is because, like you said, it's your reputation is always being the go-to. And so internally, is this what I'm hearing you say? We're scared to maybe lose that power or that reputation that has propelled us in our careers and our businesses. So the challenging part is very real, but I'm sure you have some really strategic and tactical ways to do that. What are some of the best tips you would suggest?
First off, when it comes to family, because let's face it, family is a large part of the helium hand, as you described it, is to really get people on board with what it is you're trying to do, to get them to understand that they can also contribute in some way. This is a big topic, I would say, for a lot of my much more successful and much more accomplished women because they're a little bit older. So they have elderly parents that also need to be cared for, as well as adult children. And invariably, what I see with many of them is that there's one person who's responsible for making the pharmacy runs and taking want the parents to appointments when there are other siblings or even adult children who could support that. And sometimes it's having sort of come to Jesus conversation with the family or dinner table to say, hey, guys, I've been doing it. I love doing it, but we all have to chip in a little bit more because I'm on the path to greatness in this area of my life, or I want to explore something that I haven't had the time to explore. And I know that you all want me to be happy too. So what can we all do together and roll up our sleeves to make this happen?
So it's contribution. I'm hearing some themes here. You're leading with contribution. You're leading with knowing your purpose and your why to kind of rally the troops and not just say, I'm done. It's all yours in whatever context. To really just tell people from an emotional point of view, we connect as emotionally, humans. So bring that in with a strong why factor. And then how can we work on this together? So you're not just dropping the load of whatever it is in someone's lap and say, see ya, I'm done. Because no one wants to do that. Because that's probably why in your mind, you're thinking, I could never do that, because you envision maybe a conversation like that. So you're bringing it kind of in the middle and saying, how do we work for all of us together? What's best for the situation? I absolutely love that reframe. And that is negotiation 101, which I'm not skilled at. I mean, I've not been trained in that, but I'm assuming that would be some of the core elements on this, Sharon.
Right. That's one way. The other thing that I find really astonishing is that oftentimes we engage in things that can be outsourced with almost no investment. I have a dear, dear friend of mine who is extremely accomplished, and she was complaining to me that she was so stressed because she had to iron her husband's shirts.
Oh, wow.
He's also very accomplished. So, I mean, you have two successful people. And I just thought to myself, is there any reason why those couldn't be sent out for service?
Yeah.
And it was something that never occurred to her.
Wow.
Right.
Really?
And it's something so simple. So that's another part of the negotiating. If you have the resources, get rid of those things that can be done by others much more efficiently. This is maybe you hire people. We all have folks in our lives who are looking for some additional income, young teenagers or even elderly people who want to do a little bit of extra work. There's so many resources out there that will not drain our budgets. Some of us can afford it, and some of us can afford alternatives. And I really ask people to think out of the box. If that's something that you cannot add value to, why can't it be done by someone else?
Your time is more valuable, and your mental state freeing you up will probably let you be more of a contributor and accomplish more and probably make more money. Reminds me of that book, 10X is greater than 2X. It's a huge book that I read and changed my life. And basically, are we leading with 10X things, bigger goals in our life? Or are we just leading with all the things that are just keeping us in a 2X, like mediocrity, just not doing important things? I just had my mom read it the other day and she's like, wow, it just helps you see the bigger picture where you want to go in life. So you're not doing the mundane. So quality over quantity, very similar. And in the context of women, and this is professional women, even entrepreneurial women, I'm guilty of this too. I'm doing things because I'm a perfectionist. It's too much trouble, I think, in my mind to go tell someone else or hire someone else or explain. I think it's the time thing for the most part, too. Do you find that people think, oh, that'll take too much time to have to go figure out another solution? Is that something you see as well?
Absolutely. We are most guilty of standing in our own way.
Yeah.
And what you just mentioned, Michelle, is absolutely essential. If you think about the greater why, what is it that you really want to achieve? And what's standing in your way of getting there? And when you start to frame it in that context and you map it out, I'm in a different generation. I'm still using pen and paper. So if you start to map this out and put your why in the center, and then everything that you're doing, and then you start to really ask yourself the question, how is this getting me to my big why? My purpose, whatever that is. The why doesn't always have to be a major purpose. Maybe your why is that you want to move from being a second line manager to a director in an organization. Maybe your why is that you want to spend more time in community work. It could be anything, right? And
Anything your heart's desire. It doesn't have to be the hustle, hustle, hustle. It's what's true to
exactly,
you, you know?
exactly. And so do all roads lead you to getting to your why? And I'm completely realistic. I know that there are certain things in our lives that we cannot release. It's that clear. But you know what? There are a lot more that we can and that we can renegotiate. And so
That.
part of the negotiation is also renegotiating your relationship with perfectionism.
Can I raise both hands here? I'm a perfectionist to a fault, and it's something I'm really trying to work on. It's really, really hard. At the end of the day, I've been told that's a form of fear. You know, you don't want to release anything, or it's something I really struggle with. So I need to apply the own framework, I think, to some of things in my life. Sharon, this is so good. So Sharon, you have just dropped so many gems. So now that we've owned it, tell us your best ways to stay in the game that way.
It's a tough question because sustainability is always the challenge when you're making any sort of transformational change in your life. And one of those things that I always try to encourage my clients is to have a quarterly review, just like you would in any organization. You ask yourself, okay, what did I tell myself were my main goals for this quarter or for this month? I mean, I think you have to have grace with yourself and you should not beat yourself up if you didn't reach a goal, but you also have to ask yourself, what stood in my way? You know, what were the circumstances that kept me from doing what I wanted to do the last 3 months? Because at least you don't let it get away from you. Because doing an inventory on the 31st of December so that you can set your New Year's resolution on January 1st, you just waste too much time and you lose time. You lose momentum and then you beat yourself up because you don't have enough time to catch up. And so
And you forget too. It's hard to remember at the end of the year. Who remembers what they did all year?
And so I think that having grace is important. Personal accountability plays a big role in sustaining any sort of change. And
You know, going back to your whole concept of treating us like a portfolio, you look at your financial portfolio and go, okay, what's up and down? Where do I need to fix? So think of that. So it's a good tie into that. Sharon, you're so profound in what you say, what you do. You're an international speaker. You coach women. You have a podcast. I know those listening are going to go, where can we learn more about Sharon? So where would we go?
Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I have my podcast, which is called Living While Leading, 2 episodes a month. One of them is a live episode. And this live one was created to answer a problem I had when I was young, where I didn't have a lot of contact to accomplished women and thought leaders. And so I invite accomplished women and thought leaders on my show. And we discuss the topic, and it always ends up being a masterclass and a coaching session. You can also visit my website, livingwhileleading.com, where you can find out how to reach me. You can DM me. I am very good at communicating. You send me a message, I will respond within 24 hours. So that's how you can find me.
Okay, everyone go check out Sharon. Everything. She's given you so many ways to connect with her and learn more about owning the room. Sharon, this has been tremendous. As always, you are just so gifted in your thoughts, the way you frame things, so easy to understand and take action on. So I'm going to go follow the OWN framework, and I know there's a lot of gaps that I'm going to be looking for. So thank you so much for being on the show today. It was truly an honor to have you.
It was my pleasure.
Okay, everybody. That's it for another episode. Until then, keep putting yourself out there. You have a brand to build, a message to share, and people to impact. I'll catch you next time. Take care. That's all for today. In the meantime, are you ready to grow your visibility, personal brand, and thought leadership? Then head on over to michellebgriffin.com for free resources to get started and get going today. And until next time, thanks for listening.